smartwatch now. Check my steps. इसमें हम्म
Yeah, okay, okay, okay. I'll just call this. Thank you. Yeah, okay, okay, okay. I'll just call this.
Okay, welcome, sir. Ritesh.
Yeah. Hi. Sorry about the glitch.
No,
So
it's okay. Sir, you can check your slides.
I can.
I've given the sharing rights.
Okay. Uh, okay. I-
Welcome, sir. Ritesh.
yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry about the glitch.
No, it's okay. Sir, you can check your slides. Did they
Okay.
give us the sharing rights?
I'm just. Oh, there's some echo that is also happening over here. Mm,
No, the YouTube was on, no? That
ah,
volume. So
okay.
I
Okay.
just put it off, yeah.
I'm just going back to the slides and um, share screen. Okay. So does that? Ma'am, are you able to see the slides
Yes,
now?
yes,
Yeah.
yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay, great. Now I'm going to try this a little bit. I think this works. Yeah. Um, just move a few slides just to see. Um, is my screen visible? I don't know. Yeah. Hello, ma'am. We are meeting for the first time. We did have a small interaction, but yeah, it's nice knowing you and the work.
Actually, sir, what happened is we had a meeting with Padma ma'am. She's on our
Okay.
academic council, no?
Uh-huh.
So that is where this whole thing happened. Like she spoke a lot about assessment.
Uh,
So our management and all, they said that you all should have some nice speakers on assessment because
mm,
this is one area that we literally think about, na?
mm,
And that is why then we contacted ma'am, and ma'am was very busy. So
mm.
it's a good fortune that we could meet you. Like, he said
Nice.
he's a very good person and you'll really enjoy his session.
Oh, okay. I must thank Padma for her good words. Yeah.
Yes. So our principal will join now in short time.
Okay. Yeah. We have an hour. Is that fine? Okay. Okay. Please come around.
The students know they are finished off their day, and this is the fag end of their day,
Right.
So,
I can relate to it. I'm just thinking.
so I'll speak a little bit about Jheasa, then ma'am will welcome. Then
Mhm.
there is a student coordinator who will welcome, and then we will start your talk. Okay.
Okay. So I should stop sharing now, right? Yeah. Right.
So we have one Jesuit B.Ed college in Ambikapur, Telangana.
I see. Okay.
Hmm. We have 10 B.Ed colleges.
Okay.
One is in Andhra,
Okay.
Telangana.
Telangana. Yeah. It has a
So,
good spread, Um,
hmm. So, sir, is yours also deemed to be university?
no. Ours is a now it has been a UGC recognized university. Earlier it was deemed to be, but now it's a UGC university after the NEP. And we have four campuses. Two are in Mumbai. The head office is in Mumbai. Then Tuljapur has a rural
No, this
campus.
is this in Mumbai is deemed to be, right? The
Uh,
deemed to be university, right?
Yeah, it says, but there has been a change, and now with the recent change, it is a central university now. There has
Oh, it
been
is not
some
deemed to be.
earlier it was deemed to be university. Now it is a fully UGC university. There has been some
Oh,
changes that are happening over here. Uh, but we continue with the deemed to
that's a
be
different.
status because
Uh,
uh, it is in the process and clarification would come in as we move ahead. Yeah.
okay, so what changes will happen if you are a UGC Central University?
No, I think we are, as it is, we have our autonomy and we have good standing. So I don't
No,
think
but
there
I
will be
heard
much change.
no,
Huh.
but I heard that the quality of this is like going down, and there is a lot of interference, and you're not able to actually realize your objectives.
I think
That's
there
what
are
I.
small changes, but I think we, over the years, we have been an institution which has taken all these, absorbed all these tensions. So in some, I think we would have a good standing, even as in because of the legacy and also the kind of work, largely. And also we have representatives on the UGC committee and so on. So there is a think tank also involved in it. So
Mm. This year in Mumbai is doing a great job.
yeah,
There are nice, very good people, and they
yes,
do a lot of grassroots level research. That is what I appreciate.
yes,
Lot of
yes,
grassroots level research is done.
yeah. I was
Even
there
when
in
they bring out
Mumbai
their.
for a few years back, about a decade
So one
back. I
minute.
was in
So give
Mumbai.
me
Yeah.
hello, hello. No, but I do not know why it is. I'm disabled the waiting room actually. Should I send the link again? Hari, what is the meaning? 1 minute, I'll just send again. Hello. What is happening? Hari, what is this? I think there is some problem in the account. I think so. 1 second. Why it is not coming? Wait, there is some problem. Wait, I'll just send the link to them again.
Sure.
Wait, I'm sending the link again. 1 minute, I'm sending the link again. No, you just come with this link now. I do not know why that other link is not working. See, I put it in the group. I've put it in the group. Just see. No, just see. I pasted another link in the group. Just come with that link. But then why it is not coming? Yeah. But just see, the new link. You click the new link. Huh? Okay, okay. Hmm. So what problem you faced and how you were able to come?
When you shared the second link, I joined through that link. So must be
Okay,
some
okay.
space or some character that was there.
Video is not on. Hello, Vinny.
Farita is here.
Yeah, I joined the YouTube link, and just now the second link I joined through here.
Okay, okay. I do not know what the problem was.
Hello, Ritesh.
Hi.
Hello,
Yeah.
Andrea. Good to see you
Hi,
all.
hi. Good
Just
afternoon,
good
Mr. Dr.
afternoon.
Ritesh. It's good to have you, and I'm looking forward to a very engaging session.
So, Mr. Ritesh, I'll just introduce you. Dr. Andrea Coutinho is the principal of my college, St. Xavier's Institute of Education Autonomous. And we have Dr. Farita Vegas. She is the principal of St. Aloysius Institute of Education, Bangalore. Okay.
Nice meeting you and knowing about the people behind the institutions.
Really, what's the problem?
Hello.
The second link, it worked very well. Yeah,
Mm.
so I think that should work.
So, Farita, nice to see you. Really missed the meeting, Jheasa.
Yes, yes, I know. I missed you too.
Yeah. So, ma'am said now you all have made it quarterly series, lecture series.
Yes, yes.
Then it is fine. Yeah. Father Ignatius is not well. So I called him, he is not well. Atira, I can see you online. So is it the entire class? Okay, okay. Yeah, okay, I can see you all. Good. Jason, I can see you all. Yeah. Turn the camera to the class. Dr. Farita, what about your class? How are they coming online through YouTube?
They are on the YouTube link. They are in the lecture hall. I'm in my office. So
Okay,
they
okay.
are managing. They are on, y'all on the big screen there.
Okay, students, welcome to this session. Can you all hear me? Jason, can you answer whether you can hear me, Jason?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. You can see me on the screen. You can see us all. Okay, students, welcome to this session.
Can you all hear me? Jason, can you answer whether you can hear me, Jason?
Yes, ma'am.
Jason, the YouTube, I think you have started the YouTube also.
No, ma'am.
Again, we have not started the YouTube.
Because it is echoing, the YouTube is echoing here.
Yes, ma'am.
Vinay, we are ready.
Yes, we will start. We'll start now. Father, have you started? Yes, we will start. Yeah. We will start now. Father, have you started the YouTube?
Yes, no, we are not.
Okay. Okay, so we will start.
We have
Yeah, we
joined. We are ready. We have joined the domain.
We will start. We'll start.
Yeah, you can start. Yeah.
Yes, we will start. Yes.
See, there is an echo of my voice. So somebody is on the YouTube and that is why it is echoing. Ritesh sir, you have not started the YouTube, no?
Okay.
No, ma'am.
Why then? Jason, you all have not started the YouTube, no?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
I don't know why the sound is echoing. Okay. So welcome to this online lecture series organized by the Jheasa B.Ed colleges. Today it is hosted by St. Xavier's Institute of Education Autonomous. A little bit about Jheasa. Jheasa is the Jesuit Higher Education Association of South Asia. This is a picture of their website. And the objectives of Jheasa is making all the higher education institutions become discerning organizations that provides a quality service, especially to the marginalized, for men and women, for with others, and promotes peace and reconciliation, justice and faith through research and the formation of students, leading to transformation of society and culture. Now, Jheasa has been divided into the 4 zones, north, west, south, east, and our college comes in the west zone. These are the 10 B.Ed colleges which are, organizing this program all over India. You can see that these are the 10 B.Ed colleges. It is a very great moment for us. It is a great moment of collaboration that we share with all the B.Ed colleges that are Jesuit oriented. So we share the common vision. And today we have an online lecture on critical examination of assessment in relation with students' morale and performance. I invite Dr. Andrea to welcome all of us. Hello, Father.
Sorry, we can't hear you, ma'am. I think you need to unmute yourself.
Please excuse my error over there. Good afternoon, everyone. We are all from the B.Ed colleges in the community of the Jheasa, that is the Jesuit Higher Education Association of South Asia. I welcome Dr. Ritesh Khunyakari from the Tata Institute of Social Sciences. I also welcome all the heads of institutions in the Jheasa community of B.Ed colleges, all the students who have gathered online to listen to Dr. Ritesh Khunyakari. I'm very pleased to be here at the first Jheasa lecture series organized by Professor Vinny Sebastian. It is a very happy day for us, and we're going to listen to Dr. Ritesh Khunyakari about assessment and its applications in education, especially higher education. Welcome, everyone.
I request Jason to welcome the entire student community that is present here from different B.Ed colleges. Jason, very quickly.
Yes, so good afternoon to one and all. On behalf of St. Xavier's Institute of Education Autonomous, it is my privilege to extend a warm welcome to all of you gathered here today. as we embark on this enriching journey of knowledge and learning, it fills us with immense joy to witness the collective participation of all the 10 esteemed BEd colleges in this endeavor. This series stands as a testament to our shared commitment to academic excellence and the pursuit of wisdom. In this realm of education, collaboration fosters innovations and broadens our horizon. Today, as we come together through the digital platform, let us all embrace the opportunity to exchange ideas, challenge perspectives, and inspire one another to strive for greatness. Once again, a warm welcome to each and every one of you. May this online lecture series be a transformative experience for us all. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Dr. Ritesh Khunyakari is an associate professor and chairperson of School of Educational Studies at Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Hyderabad. He has a master's in botany from the University of Pune and a doctorate in science education from the Homi Bhabha Center of Science Education, Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, Mumbai. Ritesh, sir, has been pursuing teaching, development, and research in science education, design thinking, teacher professional development, child development, cognition and learning, and assessment issues. Sir has published a number of papers, and sir has mentored students at the bachelor's, master's, and doctoral levels. Sir has won number of awards. He has represented the Indian contingent as a team leader at the International Junior Science Olympiads in 2010. The India team won 6 golds and the Best Experimental Gold Award. Later in 2017, under his leadership, he has bagged 6 gold awards. He recently co-edited the book Learning Without Burden, Where Are We? A quarter century after the Yashpal Committee report, published by Routledge. Sir, we are so happy to have you here and so fortunate to have you here. And we request you to give us your session on critical examination of assessment and its relation with students' morale and performance.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And thank you one and all for we are connecting through this platform, the digital platform, but also we are able to connect across context, geographical contexts and different spaces. And it is indeed a privilege to be a part of this gathering and talking about a very important area of interest and study, which is assessment. So I will be relying on the slides a little bit, but my presentation would have moments of discussion and interaction so that we can have a more interactive continuity in our conversation. But also at some point, if you find that something is not clear or is not making any sense, please do not hesitate to stop me at that point of time. I would really appreciate if you could do that. We have these reactionary icons. Please raise your hand or communicate. I won't be able to see the messages, so please pardon me for that thing, and we can take it on later as time goes ahead. I am also conscious of the time space that is there. So I'll try and be steady in my presentation, but if I gloss over a few ideas, you can always ask me and we can have a discussion around it. So hoping that all gets going and goes good. But starting with a big thanks to the association, Jheasa, and also to Dr. Vinny for making this happen. So I'll start by sharing the presentation. Please let me know if you're able to see it on screen as well. Yeah. Is the first slide visible? I have made it full screen now.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Okay, so as I see, it's 3:30. Yeah, so I'll get started. So the idea that I'll be sharing or talking about today is critical examination of assessment in relation to students' morale and performance. This is a very interesting area for several reasons, and I will come to it very shortly. And I will also share in this presentation some ideas around assessment and some case examples so that we are better able to relate to it. So let me begin with the first idea itself. When we think or we come across the word assessment, there are a certain set of ideas that come to our mind. Okay, perhaps if we were face to face, we would have engaged with the kind of ideas that come to our mind. But at this point of time, let's use the opportunity to initiate the discussion about the kind of ideas that come to mind. And perhaps you will resonate with some of these ideas. If you see, if you think about assessment, the notion of, report cards, the notion of being evaluated or ranking or a certain performance on a particular task comes to our mind. And along with this comes the notion of certain kinds of labels that go along with it. For example, being able to succeed in certain things, being accepted in a certain commune, or being rejected, or having a certain rank order in performance and so on. So I do hope that such images would have resonated in your mind as well. But if we look at this huge spectrum of imagery that characterizes assessment, what is interesting is that there is a sense of inclination to do certain tasks or predispositions or certain kind of relatedness with certain tasks, which is linked to a certain kind of performance. And more interestingly, what we believe is the idea that greater the morale, better the performance would be. So if somebody has great inclination or interest or enthusiasm in an area or a subject area or an activity, it is highly likely that their performance would be very nice. And this relation seems to be spoken about in a linear sense that, you have morale, so you will have performance. But the larger question would be, would the performance be an appropriate reflection of the morale itself? And second, what would happen if the performance is very good, but the morale is not good? Could there be cases like that? For example, you have very challenging situations, and some students or learners emerge from those situations as well. So this question about the connection between morale and performance seems to be a very difficult one, not so simple as it seems firsthand. Now, the other issue that is related with this association of two ideas is a complex nexus of associations. So when we talk about assessment, we think of assessment as a way of entering into some education space. Pardon me?
Please mute your mics so that we are not disturbed.
Okay. Can I go
Sorry.
ahead?
Yeah.
Not a problem.
Ma'am, that link ma'am, that link ma'am.
Okay. So sorry, sir.
No, not a
Okay.
problem.
Okay, now we can proceed.
Okay. So the set of visual images that are come to our mind are also associated with certain kind of functions that it does. So for example, we think of assessment as a way of entering into higher education spaces or getting admitted into certain programs, or we see it as markers of achievement, what we have achieved by being immersed in a program, and then the idea of confidence or even the idea of burden associated. Oh, I have to study so much and appear for an examination. At one level, you have all these kinds of emotive and social ideas associated with it. On the other hand, you have the thought of consequence. What would the assessment lead to? And how would I sustain myself within a society? What kind of social beliefs will be triggered around it? How would people interact with me? You know, if I don't perform well, would people like to engage with me? And then what kind of decision making results from assessment? So as we notice, the spectrum of influence that characterizes assessment is enormous. It goes from an individual institution to the level of society where there is a more continuous engagement with assessment. And if we were to connect with morale and we try and unpack what morale implies, it implies an individual's inclination, enthusiasm, or confidence in certain ideas. At the same time, it is about the interests that shape our thinking or engagement in various activities. On one hand, we have morale, and the other hand, we have the notion of performance, where we are faced with this question as to what the learner possesses, what kind of understanding does the learner have when we talk about competencies. Please forgive the spelling error over there. What learner has gathered in terms of the achievement, and how does learning get manifested by the learner, which is in terms of proficiency. So in a certain sense, when we are looking at assessment, we are looking at all the three aspects: the competencies, the achievements, as well as proficiency. And at the same time, we are looking at also the consequence or the implications of assessment in learning. So that makes us to, really go back to our title and ask ourselves this question. So what are we saying over here? I think our central thesis or the prime objective is, how do we relate students' morale or the personal inclination, enthusiasm, social engagement into learning, and the aspect of performance or outcomes into learning. And the critical connections that we are making in this particular presentation is with the role of assessment and the idea of learning progression, that every individual goes through a sequence of experiences which inform his or her learning in a more informed manner, so that there is a greater understanding about the social phenomena, the realities, and so, and knowledge base as such. So with this central idea, we will have a plan. And our plan is to start from the basics. So what we will do is we will go back and look at meanings and purposes of assessment. Perhaps these are known to you, but I'll just brush upon them. We will look at assessment, which doesn't happen as as a part of other activities, but it is a deliberate choice that teachers and learners make. And we look at comprehensive assessment and progression. We then look at vision of NEP. All these may be familiar to you, but then we will look at some case examples and how do we connect the idea of assessment with practice. That is something that we will figure out. And then we'll finally connect the dots and reimagine assessment, how it could be. So that's the plan for us. And I'm just looking at the watch. Okay. So let's get started with the basics. If we look at the most literal definitions of assessment and the usage in literature, it is often confused with evaluation. And the best way to look at the meaning making of these words of assessment and evaluation would be going back to the dictionary. So I had chosen Longman Dictionary of Contemporary English, 2001, third edition. And I tried to look at what does assessment mean in literally and what does evaluation mean literally. So if we look at assessment, it is referred to as a process in which we make judgment about a person or a situation. The other possibility is assessment as a calculation about the cost or value of something. Please note that two things are being involved always. That there is a process and there is a judgment about that process, about that individual or a situation. If we compare it with evaluation from the same dictionary, it is about the act of considering something to decide how useful or valuable it is. Again, it is a judgment or a document in which it is done. So evaluation implies some kind of a testing of worthiness, okay, or the value that it holds, and then making a judgment about it. Whereas assessment is about a process which leads to the judgment. Now, this has been in literature, but if we turn to research and conceptual literature, I tried to look at the same authors and how they have interpreted assessment and evaluation. I would urge you to focus on the underlined words. So for assessment is the process of collecting, synthesizing, and interpreting information to aid in decision making. The interesting part of assessment is that it is a process, and two, that it aids in a specific kind of decision making. And then further they say assessment is a continuous part of classroom life, which means that all the kind of interactions that happen within a classroom space are being informed by the processes of assessment. Okay. Whereas when we turn to evaluation, we see evaluation is the process of judging the quality or worth of a performance or a course of action. So evaluation, the key idea in evaluation is the value part of it, the worthiness part of it. So there is a specific judgment involved in evaluation, whether it was worth the investment to be involved in the process or not. What kind of contribution has a particular process yielded for a learner? Those kind of questions become important for evaluation. The reason why I flag these contrasts is because even in research literature, there is a interchangeable use of assessment and evaluation. And I feel that it is much useful to have this distinction very clear to start with. When we talk about grading, it is more like evaluation. But when we talk about learners thinking, the kind of changes that happen in thinking about certain ideas, then we are actually consciously referring to assessment. So I believe that this distinction is useful and it can help us in imagining the understanding of assessment. Now I'll go to the next question that we often ask. Why assess in the first place? And educationists can have different opinions, but here is a certain source which talks about three distinctive purposes of assessment. The first purpose is the communicative purpose, that we would want to communicate how the child or a learner is progressing in his or her learning to the parents, to the prospective employers, to the teachers, so that they can make decisions about the curriculum. So this is a well-known and established thing that has been spoken about, the communicative purpose of assessment. Everybody is interested what their learner is doing. We would also like to know what are we learning about. So this becomes a very fundamental idea. There is another interesting purpose, which is the pedagogical function. And this is the most undermined function in education, unfortunately. This purpose relates to examining the teaching so that we can introspect about the teaching and ask what kind of ideas do we need to foreground when we are engaging with teaching. Or we need to look at the kind of ideas that students bring to classrooms and how are they different from the mainstream ideas or the alternative conceptions. We are also interested in providing feedback to the student through the pedagogy so that they can become more engaged into the process of learning. Issues like ideas like remediation, encouragement into achieving certain things, self-regulating learning are a part of the pedagogical purpose of education. And the last one is the managerial function of education, where we would like to see also overall how the overall performance is, so that we can take substantive decisions in relation to policies, accounting to students' progression, maximizing the benefits of a curricular experience or a resource for the learners. So all these three purposes are significant purposes of assessment. Unfortunately, however, because of the public projection or the interests of individuals, communicative or managerial functions take precedence over the pedagogical purposes. So seldom do we find parents asking, if my child is at this level, how would you take them to the next level of learning? Or what kind of imagination do you have, or a suggestion do you have for the learners to move forward in their learning? This pedagogical purpose needs to be at least brought at the same pedestal as the communicative and managerial purposes. Now, let me turn to the next and a significant part. So we have looked at meanings and we have looked at purposes. We will look at this famous image that often comes in almost every talk on assessment. There's a cartoon clip of this kind where this bubble says, for a fair selection, everybody has to take the same exam. Please climb that tree. Now, what is fascinating in this particular thing is that there is some person who is interested in assessing. Okay, and there are participants who are being assessed, and there is a form that is assessment. And I think if we carefully look at this image and rethink about the assessment, it leads us to three important pillars of assessment. One, the intentionality of the assessor. Second, the type of assessment that is being used. And third, the form in which the assessment is carried out. So it relates to both the imagination and the process of assessment that goes along. Unfortunately, I've reduced on the pun fact, but maybe we'll come to it as we move along. So let's look at the first part, which is intent. And intent comes in largely also in the framing of the questions. Okay, so let me give an example to make my point. Suppose we ask the secondary school students, what is inside our human body? We may think that the question is being asked about human viscera, and therefore, if an outline is given, you will try to detail as much as possible that goes inside the human body. There may be different organs, there may be levels of details involved in it, and perhaps attending to details, we may get confused with the thinking that is involved in understanding about the insides of the body. And here, particularly the case of the digestive system, which is the most evident system that opens up when we cut open the body viscera. If we frame this question slightly differently, say, for example, if we ask, how does the food travel inside our body? Then we will find very interesting examples. And this is a research that we have been doing at DISS Hyderabad. We found that students have different kinds of ideas and representations. Some show it as schematic representation, line and arrows following each other. So here the learner knows about the different organs, but is showing a continuity or the flow of the food inside the body. Others show it as loop, so that they show the circle of interaction. So there is some process that is happening in two different loops that are there. Some others show it as the cake piece drops inside the abdomen. And there is no process, as if there is a pipe through which the cake has passed inside the body. And then we have free-floating small pieces of cake that are inside our abdomen. So such ideas that students have visualized would never come to us if we just ask what is inside it. But if we ask, how does a piece of cake travel inside the human body, then we will get different kinds of possibilities. So intentionality is very important in designing or framing assessment. Let me go to the next thing, which is about types. The purpose and the practice of assessment can be looked at in terms of dualities. So we have many free-floating ideas that are talked about in relation to assessment. So for example, we say, what is the kind of knowledge that is being tested? Are we looking at procedural knowledge of or steps of doing things? Or are we looking at understanding of certain ideas or concepts, declarative knowledge? Are we looking at information that the learner has gathered or the application that the student has? Is it being objective assessment or subjective assessment? Formal, informal, summative, formative, referenced, non-referenced? I will not go deeper into these distinctions, but I'll draw on your attention to two aspects over here. Please notice that in each of these, there is a duality. You have either declarative or procedural. And it is about the idea that you or the purpose that you want to use the assessment for. So if you want to use knowledge, you will look at declarative or procedural. If you want to look at content, information versus application, items. So there is a certain play of dichotomy that plays quite vividly in thinking about assessment, and we need to be mindful about it. I will stop at this point of time with regard to the types and move on to the third point, which is the forms of assessment. What are the means and tools that we can use in order to support assessment? And as we notice, there could be a range of possibilities. You can use tests, drawings, write-ups, concept maps, context maps, V-diagrams for thinking about processes. You can also look at write-ups, models, reports to look at end products, the culmination of the process. And you can have other tools which look at performances, achievements, an interplay of the process and the products. So there are variety of possibilities. The key point over here is that as a learner or as a person who's engaged with teaching learning, one has a diverse range of forms or tools to use it to the purposes of assessment. And the argument that I would just like to sum over here is that the intentionality, the forms and the types together decide what kind of an assessment would be appropriate for learning. Here we come to the idea of comprehensiveness and progression. So what are we seeking in the learner? And what are the problems that are there in education? If we look at the nature of issues that we are handling as educational students, one of the greatest problems is the curricular expectation. Often we are told that there is a limited time and there is a certain syllabus or a content that is to be covered. But we seldom engage with how the content can be meaningfully packaged or engaged with so that there is optimal understanding of what the child is learning. In fact, we use disciplinary ideas to package it, the content in a certain manner. So we have, say, for example, we talk about sociology of education, we talk about psychology of education. But when there are intersections between various kinds of issues that connect with both these disciplinary domains, we really seldom have less opportunities to engage with interfaces as such. There are distinctions that are made in the kind of experiences that we gather. Theoretical experiences, experiments that we do, field-based immersion that we do, or internships or associations with organizations. But connecting all these and seeing how these inform the quality of learning is something that is getting missed in many of our scenarios. And then we conceptualize HOTS, which is higher order thinking in Bloom's taxonomy. I hope everyone is aware of Bloom's taxonomy. If someone is not, please raise your hand so that I can just very briefly touch upon it. Otherwise, I'll move ahead. Okay, so I don't see a hand raise. I assume that everyone is familiar. So Benjamin Bloom proposed the idea of a hierarchy of understanding. and that will be a way of understanding or relating to assessment. Okay, and so this became very entrenched. In fact, we make a distinction of lower order thinking skills and higher order thinking skills, and we believe that those questions that are about analyzing, evaluating, or creating are higher order, whereas those which involve us recollecting or remembering, understanding, or applying are lower order things. So this kind of distinctions are being propagated a lot, but they are problematic in some extent. Then there are modular engagements. We believe that there are certain classes, and from that there will be certain assessments. We want to have quicker outcomes, and we are more steered towards careers. So that doesn't mean that these are not important to be attended to. But the important idea is that when we are assessing, these curricular expectations come into play, and we need to be mindful of that. Apart from curricular expectations, we have pedagogic dispositions. We have an understanding that experts will tell information and learners will gather information. Perhaps something like a talk that is happening. But how interesting would it be if we had an opportunity where we got to talk to each other and then draw upon certain ideas or expand on some of these ideas? That would be wonderful. So the pyramid gets inverted when we look at the kind of ideas when we talk about pedagogic dispositions over here. And then the thrusts from assessment. We consider that assessment is something that follows from curriculum, from pedagogy. And the last thing is about testing or seeing whether we have understood something or not. This is very unfortunate because this does not allow us to connect our imagination of what we think and what we do. If we do that, then our assessment will inform our pedagogy, and it will also inform our curriculum of what kind of content should we look at, how do we look at it. So that kind of an imagination comes when we have an understanding of progression of the learner, where the learner is and where is he or she moving to. And the distinction between competence or having capacities and performances or manifested behavior is a very important one. Not all people who perform necessarily have the competence, and not all competent people can directly translate their abilities, their skill sets into performances. And being mindful of this is very at the heart of assessment, I believe. So at this point of time, I'm just looking at okay, so then the question is, how do we make assessments authentic and reliable? And there are aspects of reliability and validity. Of course, you would have come across in various educational research courses about the idea. But one of the key questions that we should ask is whether the purpose for which assessment is designed is actually being met when it is implemented. Okay, and these are the various forms of validity that are there. So it tells us whether it is authentic way of testing or not. Okay, so suppose we are looking at the skill set of an individual, then the assessment tool should be looking at the skill set of that particular skill set, like say visual spatial reasoning abilities of the student, and it should not be testing the mathematical abilities. So we would have to have a very clear understanding of the purpose and what we are seeking to look at through the assessment. Similarly, about reliability, whether across different forms, across different types, across different modes, we get information which is reliable about the student's learning. That is very important. So whatever tools we use, does it reveal to us something about the learner's progression? Is a very important idea in reliability. We now turn to the policy changes that have come. Okay, I'll skim through this. I may not go in depth with this document. You would perhaps a very short document, but you would have read it very a lot of ideas in, but need to be very careful as one reads through the National Education Policy 2020. I am just picking up on the ideas of assessment that have been spoken about in this document. That's why the color change and slide change. It talks about several principles, but these principles, two principles, are related to assessment. There is a greater focus on regular formative assessment for learning rather than summative assessment that encourages today's coaching culture. Now, this is a belief that formative assessment will not be significant in coaching culture. There is, in fact, many of the objective tests, which are given to learners at different points of time regularly, are seen as formative, and they actually encourage it. So I think we have to take it very carefully as to what it means and what could the consequence be. The second principle that has been spoken about in NEP is a continuous review of progress based on sustained research and regular assessment by educational experts. Now, this is although this is a very interesting idea that there should be a continuous review of progress, but it says that it will be examined by the experts. I think there is a possibility of being examined by peers also, which is a very important idea in assessment. But we will go ahead with these principles and say, what does it say further about the aims of assessment? So the vision of the policy is to instill among learners it's like a huge sentence. So I'm trying to make an attempt to read it at one breath. The vision of the policy is to instill among the learners a deep-rooted pride in being Indian, not only in thought, but also in spirit, intellect, and deeds, as well as to develop knowledge, skills, values, and dispositions that support reasonable commitment to human rights, sustainable development and living, and global well-being, thereby reflecting a truly global citizen. Now, look at the breadth of purposes that are being associated with assessment. And if you look at the underlined words, those are the things that or measures that we need to look for in assessment: knowledge, skills, values, and dispositions. Towards what end? Towards responsible commitment to human rights, sustainable development, global well-being, truly global citizen. A lot is being demanded is the purpose of assessment. If you look at more carefully the document further, it makes a very tall claim about an aim. The aim is transforming assessment for student development. It says that assessment would have the potential to transform the trajectories of student development. And therefore, you need to continuously review it and check for the higher order skills such as analysis, critical thinking, conceptual clarity. While this is a very interesting idea, we need to be careful about what it means and how do we implement it. In addition, they had made a suggestion of having an organization or a national assessment center called PARAK, which looks at performance assessment review and analysis of knowledge for holistic development. So these are the details, but there are, careful cautions that one has to exercise as one goes through these documents. So I'll just move beyond this and go into the idea of assessment in practice and recall the structure of being proposed by NEP, which is the foundational years, the preparatory years, the middle level, and the secondary years. Okay. Now, what I will do henceforth, and I'm looking at time, is we will use the next about 10 minutes or so to go through different examples of assessment at different levels, from the foundation to the preparatory phase, through the middle school, secondary, and higher education. And my attempt would be to draw different intentionalities, different purposes, different forms of assessment, and build an understanding of what we gain from that assessment. Okay, so that we are able to construct an understanding of how can we use assessment to inform learning. Okay, So I'll make an attempt at that. I hope everyone is with me. Just give a hands up so that I have a reciprocal understanding that things are going fine. Can somebody give a thumbs up or react to it so that am I audible, visible, comprehensible?
Going
Yes,
fine. It's going fine.
Yes. Okay. Sorry, it's a long conversation and you don't see the reactions. So yeah. So let's go to case examples. So let me start with the preschool level, the foundational level. So there is this research done by Diksha and myself where we tried to understand how do children look at everyday problems and how do they think of solutions? What kind of solutions do they think? And can this understanding be helpful in developing their language, their thinking abilities, their skills of representation, and so on? So we did several tasks with children. So I'm just going to explain one task. The task was that some small kids are playing besides a lake, and as they are playing with the big ball falls into a huge lake. Okay, and with the flow of wind, the ball moves into the center of the lake. So the children have to get their ball back from the lake so that they can play again. And we asked students at different age groups, nursery grades, grade 1, grade 3, and grade 5, as to how they would think they could get the ball back. So I'm going to use the cursor over here if the cursor is not visible. So maybe the spatial orientation I'll use. If you look at the first image on the left-hand side, it shows a slide down the rainbow. So very young children said they had very fantasy-based imagination, and they said, we will go down the rainbow, go to the ball, and get the ball back and slide back to the land. Similarly, there was another set of students who said, okay, what we'll do is we'll create a boat, but the boat should be in the shape of a fish. Okay, so that it can go into the waters. We grab the ball and come back in the boat. But if you look at higher grades, students said that they'll cut the tree, make a boat out of it, sail in that boat, go to the ball and get back the ball. Now, these are three interesting examples. There are many I have not put in there, and perhaps if you look at the visuals, you'll be excited by the kind of ideas that students can think of. But what we notice, although there is a developmental change in terms of their strategies that they have made, there are very interesting variations in representations and ideas. Notice that very young children drew other ideas which were related to their experience. For example, they drew clouds, they drew rain, they drew the waves in the water. Okay, so those kind of ideas. Whereas older children chose abstraction. Look at the images that they have made of the individuals, just two stick figures so that they can communicate the message. And they used arrows in very interesting ways. Now, research in cognition and thinking has shown that very young children can also engage very meaningfully into acts of thinking and problem solving. And this is a case example of how it could be achieved. There are many interesting ideas related to it, but if you are interested in how we assist or analyze these drawings, you can access this paper in Early Childhood Education Journal, which has been recently published over here. Let us move to the next case, which is the preparatory phase. So we asked the middle school students, grade 6th and grade 7th, as to what their ideas about technology are. And we asked them to draw their images of technology, a very different modality of painting, not just sketching, to explain about what comes to their mind when they think of technology. And we had representations of this kind. So these are examples. There are many more. There may be hundreds of various examples. But I just chose 2 images to make my point clear over here. We found a very interesting understanding. What do you find in both these drawings? What is the key focus of students in this? If somebody can speak, what is shown in these paintings? Anybody from the participants?
Students, please unmute your mics and speak.
Huh? Pardon me?
No, I asked them to unmute their mics and speak.
Oh, okay. Thanks, ma'am. This must be a different.
Anyone?
Huh? Yes, please.
A lot of hardware in technology, Andrea ma'am has written. A lot of hardware technology is depicted in both images, especially what is seen on TV.
Yeah. So thank you, ma'am. So there's a lot of objects which are shown. Okay. We don't see any human being in this. Okay, in fact. And the kind of objects that are represented are also of a peculiar kind. You know? So we have electrical gadgets, we have electronic gadgets, and we have an understanding of what has changed over time. Okay, so such images came very prominently when we asked them about technology. You must have heard in your B.Ed classes the idea of constructivism, that we try to understand from the learners first as to what they know, and then start relating to it to build new knowledge. If we were to teach them about technology, a good starting point would be to assess what they already know. And this assessment reveals to us that their understanding is limited to objects, artifacts, electrical and electronic gadgets. Hardly are there any other kinds of issues related to technology that have been brought to center stage. Okay, so this is a very nice way of using assessment to understand individuals' thinking. Okay, now let me go to the third case, which is the middle school, middle grades, middle level as has been articulated by NEP 2020. So this relates to a task about understanding of the cell. As a biology student, you know, we often in the secondary grades talk about cell, their structure and their function. Okay, so all the students, as I was teaching them, you know, I understood that they have learned and they have known about the various organelles. So I gave them a task. I told them, okay, you have read the textbook, you know about the cell, plant cell or the animal cell, and now you have to develop a board game such that it explains the structure and functioning of the biological cell. And we found very fascinating ideas that came up in the design of the board game. Here, the assessment is a very unique kind. It is a project kind. And it involves making connections between 2 different ideas, the knowledge of board game and the knowledge of the biological cell. They did have a choice of choosing between the plant cell or an animal cell. And they came up with this different kinds of board games, the rules for playing. There were 2 ideas that were central to working together in groups. One, that they should have a mixed group of genders. And second, that they should not use any material which costs very high and cannot be reused. So they tried to pick up things which were in their surroundings and they created board games like this. And as you notice on the left-hand side, There are 6 players that can play this game together. And this board game folds into a very small box, which can be used, packaged together, and they can start playing with. There are rules, there is a rule book, there are various icons, and there are various norms for playing this game. A very fascinating way of connecting two knowledge areas and showcasing their understanding in a very meaningful way. So this is at the middle level, but now let's look at secondary and secondary plus. So as teachers or future teachers, we are interested in understanding, and this would be my last case. We are interested in understanding about what is childhood and what does it mean to know more about the learners. And there is enormous literature which speaks that we need to understand multiple childhoods in India. So what we did was an exercise at our university. I encourage students to look for metaphors that describe childhood. Okay, so some say that children are like plants. Others say that they are like God, semi-God. Okay, so those kind of ideas are prominent as metaphors that are prevalent over there. So we analyzed these metaphors and we found a very interesting mix of different ideas. There were large number of metaphors which related to natural artifacts, such as flowers from God's home. Children are like plants. Okay, they need to be nurtured early on and shaped up like early on. They are like valued artifacts, like a precious gift or a wet cement. Once the cement becomes strong, then it is difficult to change. They also looked at some metaphors which were of symbolic profiles. So children are like poets, children are like innovators, and so on. They were imaginative projections. Children are like wizards, they are angels, and so on. And they were homologous, they are like monkey mind, they are very mischievous, notorious, or they are like robots. You say something and they'll follow that. So there are these interesting beliefs that are associated with what we consider as a metaphorical understanding of childhood. We tried to raise these metaphors and analyze them, and we found a very interesting notion of how we engage with the question of nature and nurture, the understanding of active development versus passive development. We did the same task with different kinds of things. We changed the tools. For example, we asked students, our MA students, to analyze toys and tell us about Indian childhoods. We looked at advertisements of different kinds. We looked at analyzed games of different kinds for children, stories and poems, the songs that have been written. There's a very beautiful song, Ye daulat bhi le lo, ye shohrat bhi le lo. भले छीन लो मुझसे मेरी जवानी, मगर लौटा दो मुझको वो बचपन का जीवन, वो कागज की कश्ती, वो बारिश का पानी. Very nice ghazal, coming from Sudarshan ji from the northern belt of the country, very early on, prepared. So such kind of connections, contextual connections, can also be very empowering for assessments. So coming to the closure, I think there is a puzzle of assessment, and the puzzle of assessment rests upon two interesting aspects. One, what is the purpose of or the relation of assessment with regard to learning or learning progression? If it is assessment of learning, it is more cumulative in nature and it is dealt after the process of learning so that you get feedback. If it is assessment for learning, you learn through the process of learning. It is more iterative and it is feed forward. But if you have assessment going along with learning, then you can make the assessment as an integral part of your pedagogy, of the curriculum, and make it more reflexive, which is assessment during the learning. And it feeds along the progression. The other interesting variant is that we need to make a conscious connection between intent, type, and form. And that is an agency of a teacher, that we can use selectively the intent, type, and form so that we have an appropriate assessment, A, which is informing the learning. There are various ideas that have been spoken about, but I'll just distill some of these ideas on the larger front where we have to reimagine assessment. I think there is a need for looking for a balance of intent, form, and type so that we meet the purposes as well as progression in learning. We also want the students to be motivated. And when they are doing those activities, they are also thinking about the ideas that they have learned or internalized from the textbooks or other resources. So we would like to look at assessment which goes along with learning, along with off learning and for learning. Okay, so the central idea in terms of relating assessment to learning is the idea of progression, not of performance, because performance will give you a slice of the experience, but progression will give you the continuity of experiences that lead to learning. We also notice that there are three forces that are in play. We have privatization that is greatly catching up, where education is seen as a commodity. But we need to be mindful that we can also not follow the standard templates, but have alternative imaginations of assessment, which strengthen our thinking and change the pyramid of assessment of, for, and as learning to assessment as learning becoming the base of the learning assessment continuity. We also have globalization where market-led forces are asking for mobilizing certain kind of resources. Often people say that you do this particular package and it will be very good for visualization of certain body systems. But that is not true. Sometimes we also have to dig into understanding of how learners think about those and use our tools available at our disposal to think about what assessment can reveal about students' knowledge or understanding. And the last part is there is a greater internationalization that is happening. This internationalization, if it leads to diversification, that may be very well appreciated. But if it constrains our thinking in certain narrower ways, then it will be a huge problem. So being mindful of these in assessment is useful both as learners or students of education and also as practitioners of education who would be going to be teachers and having their own classroom space where they can design, try out, and get informed from assessment practices. So I'll rest my case over here and hand it over back to Vinny ma'am so that we can have some questions if possible.
Okay, so thank you for a very nice session. I would request the audience to ask some questions to sir for any clarification or anything that you all want to share related to what sir has presented. We'll wait for a few minutes, sir.
Okay, sure.
Sir, I have a question. See, we have large classes, whenever we go to schools for observation, there are large classes. So how do you think like a teacher should manage the assessment? Because yes, when we go through theory, we know that there are different types of assessments and how we are supposed to do the cognitive, the Bloom's taxonomy and all we know. But when it comes to actual practice, you showed the different models, the types of assessments and all that. Definitely we know all that, but the large numbers, how do you think like we should be managing?
Yeah. I'm just drawing upon my experiences and a little bit of sharing with my colleagues. So there are two kinds of possibilities. One is the possibility of structuring the assessment itself. For example, can we have a collaborative project or do we have individual tasks which can be carried out on a large scale? Say, for example, a drawing task or a written you know, component which can be handed over to a large group of individuals. The other possibility is looking at the nature of engagement with assessment, wherein we can have peers drawing and reflecting about each other's work. So many a times I have had workshops of 150 individuals or more, sometimes 500 and so on, where we have done tasks on the go. And we ask the participants to look at each other's work and reflect about it. This allows them to see that there are other ways of thinking about the same idea, but at the same time also start articulating about what they notice and think. Many a times there is this gap between what we know and think and what we understand. And that becomes very important into thinking about systems. Also, projects which can pan out, which can be done collaboratively and pan out over a period of time, also has immense potentials because, like the board game, it was done in a period of a month's time, and it was done with about 70 students in a classroom with various groups working on different activities. And till now, I have students wherever I go in whichever parts they say, we remember your classes where you had made us do this, or you had made us do a model of DNA. So there is an element that is associated with the doing that actually strengthens our thinking. And the classic example of it is cooking, where we make estimates of, mirch, masala, or the salt based on our experiences or handling of those resources. So maybe we need to bring back these ideas of working with hands, possibilities of thinking, and then the work environments in which we have individual, peer, or collaborative exercises. Sorry for a long response.
Sure. Okay, so shall we conclude the session if there is no question? I think it's the end of the day, and you have given a very good session, sir. And I'll just go through your session, some of the things that you have spoken to us about the interrelationship between the students' morale and performance, learning progression, and assessment. Also, the purposes of assessment, the communicative, pedagogical, and managerial. You also said that the assessment must directly relate to quality. You presented the curricular expectations, the pedagogic disposition, and I like the inverted pyramid that you showed us. Also, the interdependent iterative relationship, which is, was very meaningful. And then you posed a question on, are assessments authentic and reliable? Definitely, you said the reliability should come through learner progression. You also gave us an insight on the NEP 2020 and presented very, very interesting case examples. I really enjoyed looking at those case examples, and it actually, we entered the minds of the children and how they think and all. So very nice. And the puzzle of assessment, where you brought to us the feedback, feed forward, and the feed along concepts. And you said that there should be an interrelationship between the intent, type, and form, informing the learner. And you also said about the three components or the three factors that affect the assessment, that is privatization, globalization, and internationalization. And we have to move towards the idea of progression and not performance. So I think it has been a very meaningful session, sir. And I also teach assessment for learning, but let me tell you, it has been a learning experience for me also. I would like to, acknowledge the presence of Father Thomas Alex, who is the principal of St. Xavier's College, Palyam Kotai, and Dr. Farita Vegas, who is the principal of St. Aloysius Institute of Education, Bangalore. Dr. L. Kulandai Teresai, who is the principal of Loyola College of Education, Chennai, and also Dr. Father Francis, who is the principal of Loyola College of Education, Namchi, Sikkim. I am aware of these principals present here, but I do not know whether the other principals are present. I just looked up the participant list. So thank you very much for your presence and your encouragement here at this point. I would like to propose a vote of thanks here at this session. First of all, thanking our resource person for agreeing to take this session with us and helping us understand the concept of assessment. And we thank God for having this day and, making it happen for us. I thank all the heads of the institution of all the Jheasa B.Ed colleges for supporting and encouraging this program because it has been a very meaningful program for us. I would like to thank my own principal, Dr. Andrea Coutinho, for supporting me for having this program, and all the students who had helped me to set up the program and the class for me. And I also thank all the principals here who have taken efforts to encourage their students to participate in this program. So thank you very much. And I would conclude this session by saying that, sir, it has really been a meaningful session for us. And I hope that we connect again and listen to you. And I would request you to send me your presentation so that, we can just go through it and refer to it whenever we teach our assessment paper.
Yes.
So thank you very much. And thank you all the students once again for attending, and all the principals once again for attending. Okay. So thank you.
Thank you, and hope you have a lovely evening. Bye-bye.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
So students, I will be sending, actually the heads of the institution, I will be sending the feedback form. Please encourage your students to fill the feedback form so that we get a feedback of this session. Okay,
Yes,
so thank you very much.
Surely, Professor.
Look forward to it. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you,
Yes, thank
Winnie.
you. So students, I will be sending,
Andrea.
actually the head of the institution, I will be sending the Kulandai. Yes, how are you?
Hello,
Dr.
fine.
Kulandai, yes, how are you? And this is Dr. Andrea, our principal. Dr. Farita. This is Dr. Andrea, our principal.
Good evening, Dr. Kulandai. Good evening. Good to meet
Thank you,
you.
Professor Andrea, Dr. Farita, and Dr. Vinny.
Hello, Teresa.
You're all fine.
I met Dr. Farita. I'm waiting to meet you all.
Yes.
Yes, how are you?
Fine, ma'am. Thank you for the wonderful session.
Yeah, nice session.
Students would have also benefited a lot from this because they are having the paper assessment for learning.
Yes.
Yeah, ma'am.
The second year they have the paper. Yeah.
Hello, Teresa.
Hello.
I met Dr. Farita. I'm waiting to meet you all.
But, YouTube is on, I think that is why you get an echo. So we will wait for the next lecture series. I think it will happen in April, I think so. So we'll wait for the next lecture series.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay,
Thank you
see you
very
all.
much.
Thank you. Bye.